Welcome back to the Code Yellow podcast, where we dish the gender wars and we talk about relationships and love through the lens of scripture and good old common sense. Zal, what you got for us today?
Woo, woo. All right, so my question of the day is going to go be in the form of this or that. I love that game. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you all a this or that question, and you got to choose one. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. Devin, text or call?
For what?
Text or call?
On the phone.
Text or call? No other information.
prefer?
Text or call?
Call.
All right. Annie, playlists or podcast?
Podcast.
Okay. Jasmine, this one's for you because I know slippers or shoes.
Slippers.
Okay. Not even high heels?
I know. That's what I was like, love a good shoe. Slippers.
Slippers. Okay. Now you got to ask me one. Make it good, y'all.
Dang. Oh, tofu or tempeh?
Tofu.
That was a good one.
Tofu. Yeah.
Really? I tempeh more.
Yeah.
Nah.
Tofu is
Tofu,
so
boy.
diverse.
Tofu.
I make
Yeah,
I make
tofu.
ricotta out of it. Tofu scrambled. You eat like
That's true.
chicken.
Yeah.
Quiche. Love tofu. Yeah.
Tofu every time, man.
Yeah.
Tofu every time. Yeah. Anyway. So today's topic, we are doing a kind of deeper one. We are talking about the past, leaving it in the past. And there's so many dimensions to this for people who are single now and people who are married now. There's several things that happen over the course of life, right? And like people that come and people that go, things that happen and things that need to be forgiven. Things, so many things can happen, but the time is always moving forward. Let's talk about what it means for the past to stay in the past. For singles, let's start with singles first.
Me?
The resident single person.
Yes. I mean, I think, like, are we talking, like, family-wise or, like, relationship-wise?
Why not both?
Okay. I think like we all come into life like with unique experiences. Like there's that saying that no two siblings were raised by the same parents.
I've never heard that.
Really?
I've heard that. I've
Yeah,
heard it.
because each child has like their own unique experience with their parents, and then parents. Sorry to the parents, whether you acknowledge it or not, but parents, humans, we tend to categorize. And so parents, naturally, there'll be children that they gravitate to more than the other. And, it's favoritism, but it's humane. Like, that's just what happens. And so no two children have the same experience. Even if you're raised in the same household,
That's true.
like there's no two children that are raised in the same household because you didn't have the same, like, yeah. And so with that, like, even in relationships, like there's things that we all bring to adulthood, relationships, whatever, and that, we are going to have healing. By the time you're an adult, you have to heal from something. Like everybody needs therapy. It just is like the severity of therapy. How much do you need it? Because like we all come into things with baggage. And so I would argue, I don't know if it's really an argument, but like we all have things to heal from and things to forgive, things to let go, because like we all have unique experiences that we've been through.
Yeah.
Right.
So, my initial, leaving the past in the past. My only thing about that is I think it's important to understand that your experiences do shape a lot of who you are, your filter, like how you perceive and see the world, how you interact with others. So I think it's not, because I feel like saying leave the past in the past could be dismissive as, like that happened to you or that experience happening, like it's in the past, like just let it go. I feel like that's not very realistic. I think it's more about dealing with things like say you have a past hurt, like actually unearthing like what different things from it, like what did you learn from it, what part did you play in it, how is it affecting you now, and what to do with that versus like continuously replaying it or carrying it around and like using it to like apply to every, like any situation that resembles it. That's dangerous, right? Or unproductive. But I think it's more than just like if something happened in the past, just it stays in the past, because that's not really true. It does, depending on how you've dealt with it or healed from it, it still comes with you. So I think it's how you deal with your past is what's important,
Right.
or impactful.
Yeah. Zav, you got something for us?
Yeah, I mean, to what Jasmine was saying, I don't know if I agree with that. I think it's an active choice. There have been countless people, maybe even some of us have gone through like trauma or whatnot. And I think that, yes, getting the healing is what, like, it doesn't have to come with you like trauma. Like,
That's what I'm saying, deal with it. That's what I'm saying. Like the dealing with it part is what matters, not just whether it's then, whether it's that, but if you don't deal with it, it will come with you. That's what I'm saying. Because people will say like, oh, it just happened. It's the past. Like that was a long time ago. But I'm saying it will continue to come with you if you don't deal with the past or address it in those different ways.
Okay,
So, yeah,
okay.
that's what I'm saying.
I was like,
it
nah.
doesn't have to. No, I know, but not dealing with it, and just because something happened in the past, if it's not dealt with, doesn't mean it stays in the past. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And it won't.
Yeah, it will not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, to cut you off, but
So when we discussed this topic at first, it's kind of obvious now as you said it, but like acknowledging the past is the vital component to moving forward from the past. A therapist has said something to me. Well, my therapist said something to me back in California. She said, "You name it to tame it." Right. So when something has happened and you're looking back to analyze it, it's good to wrap your head around it rationally instead of trying to bury it, because when you bury it, it's gonna come out another way unless you repurpose it, you reorganize it. And then if you don't repurpose it, reorganize it, you're doomed to repeat it. Because it's like history. Like if you don't know the path if you can't work out the path that got you to where you were before, it's going to be a natural habit to get there again. So, and that's a particular key thing to acknowledge in like relationships, right? So I know that a lot of singles they've had different relationships in the past. So different baggage, it's stuff that's happened to them in relationships, or there's a person that they should be leaving in the past. Like, what's the journey to, I guess, departing from, say, a bad relationship and not repeating those bad habits?
That's a good question.
That's
I think for me, like in my journey, it took a lot of like looking inward. And I mean, to circle back, I think it went back to a lot of like the self-love conversations. Like there were things that, of course, people like did to me, and maybe even things that I did to people also in my like when I was unhealed. And it took the ability, like you have to look inward and be like, people treated me badly, but like, why did I like stay and let people treat me badly? Like, I think you have to be able to take accountability in it in order to forgive, because I think it's really easy to like play victim, at least for me. Like I had been through situations where it was really easy for me to be like, well, they did this and they did that. But then like having like the ability in like along with my therapist, because I didn't walk through that journey alone. Like I've been with my therapist for 4 years now, and her ability to like bring out of me that like, okay, that happened, but like why? Like what part of you were like you allowing that to happen? And then like once I worked through that, then there was an ability to also, and again, like maybe this is not a hot take, but also like as a child of God, being able to look at someone and not only see them as your experience with them, but also acknowledge that like hurt people, unhealed people are unhealed people walking around like causing people trauma. And when people don't have God, like or when people allow like the devil to use them, they're going to be a thorn in your side. Like that is just what it's going to look like. But then that God loves them too. Like in the ability to like have empathy and be like, they are just a person who's not as evolved in their journey spiritually as like you. And then when you add God into it, and then when you add like health and stuff, like that was what it took for me to forgive like past things that I've been through, because it just was like, either I'm gonna hold on to it, and I mean, like you can be like, you know, this happened to me, I was wrong, I was da, da, da. But then like, yeah, when you just love yourself enough to be like, okay, what was my part in it? And then you love God enough to be like the worst thing that somebody did, it doesn't have to encompass like who they are. You could have been the person's like worst experience on this planet, and that was your experience, and it doesn't negate your experience, but then also like God still loves them, and there's room for like forgiveness, and there's room for grace, not just from you, but from like our Heavenly Father, because that's what we believe. Like we believe that. So like putting that into practice. That was my journey towards healing and forgiving.
That's good.
It doesn't encompass who they are, but it doesn't also encompass who you are as well, because they could be the most worst person in the world, and then we take it on ourselves, like thinking negatively about ourselves. But I think the word that keeps like blaring in my mind is self-awareness. Think about when we all were 18 years old and the decisions that we made, and just it comes to be a point, I think, like in our human experience, especially as a believer, that you're self-aware, realizing like, okay, these behaviors, these habits, this lifestyle, this mindset, what I'm engaging in, what I'm indulging in, how I'm dressing. It could be anything. Just being self-aware, realizing like, yo, like I can't do this anymore. So let me leave that in the past. Like my 18-year-old mindset, I would hate to have the same mindset that I had when I was 18,
right,
or even 30, or whatever the case may be. And, you know, I'm thinking about Lot's wife, like leave the past in the past. Like that's not just a cool thing to say, or like you said, like a hot take, like, no, we got to leave the past in the past. The past in the past, because you know what happened when she looked back. That was her past. That was everything she wanted. It was this lifestyle. It was just all these great things. And God was like, "Yeah, nah, that's not serving you anymore." So being self-aware to realize that this isn't serving me. This isn't honoring God. This isn't serving the person that I also want to be.
Yeah,
But
and I'll go a step further. Like what you were saying, like as far as Lot's wife, like it wasn't even that she was only looking back towards like, you know, what she wanted and stuff, because like they knew that they had to get to the next place, because that place wasn't gonna exist anymore. My thing is, I think that she looked back towards like what she knew, and she looked back towards her normalcy, and like the toxicness of that city, although the city was, you know, like turmoil and chaos and sin and all this stuff, but it was what she knew, and she looked back and was looking towards like of course they knew that they were going towards like that little village or whatever. I literally was actually reading that story not long ago. That's why it's so fresh on my mind. But they were moving towards like this village that God renamed as like the new place of solace or something. But like, so she knew that they were going towards health and whatever, but it still was an unknown that they were walking towards.
It's familiar.
Right. And so she looked back towards like familiarity, even though they knew that God no longer abided there. And so like, you know, we have a way in our lives too. Like that's one of the things that keeps people from health, is looking back, is not necessarily, it may not be looking back towards health, but towards unhealth, but it's looking back towards like even unhealth is normal to them. And so like being able to realize like you may not want it, but like what's needed is like this new normal.
So there were a couple of R words that you mentioned, Devin, when you were talking about the past and what does it look like. And you mentioned reorganizing,
renaming.
Say it again. Yeah.
Renaming.
Yep, renaming. And so that's so important. And there's an R that's another important R, which is replaying. Because a lot of times, so that's where I found myself caught up for a long time with past hurt, is replaying it so much. Oh, because you have to name it, right? You mentioned naming it. But you have to rename it. So if you don't do any of those other R's, you can replay it, because it's like, you know, you got to go back to the thing and name it. But if you replay it without doing any of those other things, reorganizing it, renaming it, naming it something else, and really getting to the root of it, when you replay the past, you can also invoke the emotions related to. And so you'll find yourself constantly replaying, and almost feeling those same feelings. And you find yourself in continual unforgiveness, continual hurt, whatever was related to the past. And so that's why that reorganizing is really important, because once you reorganize and really think about, like you said, playing, what part did I play? What was my responsibility in it? Looking at it just from different perspective, and also removing yourself. That was the other thing you were saying. Like, how do you? Once I found myself constantly removing myself and getting further and further away from different things in the past, that really, really helped. And not so much just removing to the point where it was like pretending like it didn't exist, but removing from the replaying. That was helpful. Reassociating different parts of it once I gained more self-awareness, as Aviance was speaking of, and really being able to look at it with a different eye. But I had to remove myself from it, because if you keep replaying it, you won't allow yourself to see it a different way. It's almost like when you watch a movie that you haven't seen in a long time, and you might see something you either forgot happened or that you didn't notice before. But if you watch the same thing over and over again, I can tell you the episode is playing along and I'm saying the words right with it. It's like you don't necessarily have a new experience with it, or can forgive or let it go or what have you. So just like a lot of those words like really stuck out to me, because when you reframe the past, that can help you put it down and lay it to rest.
So a very potent tool of reframing, renaming, I saw in a reel, is an older gentleman talking to I guess he was speaking to the person who was now presenting this in her own podcast. I don't remember her name. If I find it, I'll put it somewhere. But sometimes, you'll think about, who's somebody who hurt you, somebody who did this to you, and you're like, that person did X and Y to me. It's evil. They did this to me, right? But what if we kind of looked at it as, okay, they did this to me, but in reality, I was their answer to prayer at that point, or God was answering a prayer that they had through me. So everybody's not at it's kind of like a little bit out there, right? But somebody might be in a stage of fragility where they now have acted out against you because of this state. Now, if it was another person, if you were another person, you were crazy out your mind, you might have, beat them up, but you didn't. You kind of ate whatever transgression they acted against you and then brought it forward. It kind of gave them a room to cope with whatever they had going on at that time, whatever it was that happened. It's just maybe it's not how it is for every situation, but if we think about it as, hey, whatever this person was going through, they needed this time to, I guess, release some of that internal pressure. It happened to be on me. It is what it is. Because we have those moments too, whether we not we acknowledge it. Like somebody that we all have victims somewhere. Everywhere, somewhere in somebody's story, we're the villain, right? So it's just keeping that in mind. Like we're not this perfect protagonist walking through life, just doing everything perfectly. That doesn't exist because we're humans, right?
For sure.
Mm-hmm. So wow, I think we really kind of talked about a lot of different things, but how do we married people use this mechanism to help our marriages stay healed and progressing forward?
I think it's important to know that someone can be healed from something and still be triggered. So, for example, you could physically injure yourself. That boo-boo, there was trauma to that part of the body. The wound is healed. It's not there anymore. But you still, if you find yourself in a similar situation where you could injure yourself the same way, you may respond in a certain way, right? To protect yourself. And that's based on the experience that you had. You don't want to experience that hurt again. And I think it's important that in marriage we are a safe enough space to know that triggers doesn't necessarily mean that someone isn't over something or not healed or that they are still living in the past. And or that healing could still be taking place, right? Because depending on what, the healing looks different for everyone, depending on what it is. Even if you feel like you've experienced the same thing as someone else, and you feel like I don't have those triggers, and I had a similar experience, or, I'm further in my healing. It's almost like spirituality. We shouldn't compare our spiritual growth or rate of growth to someone else, right? And so I think it's important to know that even if someone is triggered, that doesn't mean that, like, spouses have to be mindful, like, one, how you respond, right, to the trigger, and how you're both, whether you're causing the trigger, even if it's unintentionally, but knowing that a person can be triggered and not say that it's like, I'm taking it out on you, right? So, but because you have to be aware. So it's like, I in relationships I've been with, even with my husband, it's like, well, I'm not that person, or I'm not the person that caused the trauma, the whatever you're feeling that reminds you of the past. And it's like, that may be true, but there's a trigger that's present now. And so let's address the trigger, or let's address the whatever is causing, that feeling. So I think that's important in marriage, because that can happen. That can happen.
I think, I guess as a husband, like, leaving the past in the past is just about protection. Like, you like wanting to protect. I know the first question was like, well, is it family? Is it like past relationships? It's all the above. You know what I mean? Leaving people in the past that have done you wrong, and they don't even have the opportunity to even get close to your husband or to your wife or whatnot. So I think a big thing for me is like just always like going out of my way to make sure that my wife is like protected from the things of my past and family members, and just things that like I just feel that, yeah, this isn't the mindset that I whether it be like party lifestyle, like whatever it is, just like this isn't, Jasmine always like, well, is this productive? It's like she always asks me that question, and I'm just like, in this scenario, just making sure she is in a safe environment that is that allows our relationship to be productive. And grow and flourish. I'm like nothing can come between like my family and the things that like I've let go or whatnot. Those things are just really important for me. So,
Right. So I think that healing, working on triggers, working on those sore spots individually is super important. And I'll be vulnerable with myself. So I think a trigger point for me, or like something that's kind of like hard for me, is feeling like I might do something wrong, or like feel like wrong could be anything, just not perfect, whatever. Feeling like I might not handle this situation the right way, or might upset somebody or something. And that kind of leads me to overthink and like be a little hesitant, and get in my head real easy. But I've been working on that myself, right? And like being less afraid to like say piss somebody off, or like less afraid to like stand on something even though somebody might be upset, right? And I think that that's so far only provided good benefits. Like it's made me a better leader, maybe a better husband, because now I can stand on action, like for real. Like this is what's gonna be, whether this outside person likes it or not. Or even when I want to set a tone or direction for my family, I can talk with Martha in a helpful way that's going to provide a firm, like a solid direction, and I'll have a valid explanation that I'm not going to waffle on, because I know what I'm saying. I believe what I'm saying is right.
That's good.
That is.
It's good.
Thanks for being vulnerable.
Yeah, of course.
So to kind of like bring this all together, we've all had a lot of different experiences. What is something you would share with someone who may be struggling with the past or forgiveness, or they feel like, it's a very cliche, like, oh, forgive people, leave the past in the past. Like, what is something very real that you would give them, maybe from your healing journey, leaving things in the past from your experience?
That's a good question.
I say, I talk to the camera. This for you, y'all. In the realm of leaving things in the past, you know, this is kind of like a social media like buzz meme, but you know, honestly, you're not going that way. You're not going that way. I believe in you. I believe God has great things in store for you. And whether it's a person, whether it's a mindset, whether it's a lifestyle, whether it could be anything, leave it in the past. I know it's easier said than done. So again, get in community, make sure that you are doing the inner work to make sure that you are self-aware, and there's only great things in your future with God on your side.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, my plug is going to be towards therapy. Like, I think what you're saying is like true. Like, I think, you know, leaving the past in the past, but I think sometimes depending on our experiences in life, I think we're not always given the tools to leave the past in the past. And I think that there's nothing wrong with, and I say that as someone who used the tool, having a therapist walk you through like healing your trauma. Because I honestly don't think I would have gotten as far as I have without like my therapist. I may have been on a healing journey, but I think like just the questions that she posed, and then her ability to like hear what I'm saying, but unearth it as like, okay, this is what you're saying, but here's what like is actually going on. And here's where like, blah, blah, blah. Like that is something that, even though like you guys are amazing friends to me, but it's something that like, unless you have like a therapist ear and a therapist like education, is something that like people don't always have the ability to like get out of you. And so that is my plug of like, because I used it, and that's not a plug that I used it myself. Like I am much further in my healing journey because of my ability to have like spoken to someone about it.
Mm-hmm. And mine is, just to preface this, like there's so many things that have not been discussed yet. We haven't talked about like big valid reasons to like be, you know, hurt, say, and there's a lot of reasons to have baggage from the past. It could be cheating, it could be assault, it could be anything like that. I'm not gonna say that all of these things are just, just get over it. No, of course not. Of course not. But the core of it is this. If you have not changed from your past, you're not leaving your past. So if there's something that you're carrying with you, if you have not grown from that situation is going to still follow you. There's no way around that. Like if you have not, if you've experienced it, you say you got in with a person that wasn't good for you and you left that person, great. But if you don't know how you got with that person to begin with, you're going to end up with somebody else. It's going to be different like poop in the same, different toilet, but the same poop. You know what I mean?
Like, I've not heard that before, but okay, I get it.
So make sure that whatever you're leaving behind, you're taking a lesson with you that's going to prevent you from experiencing that hardship or that headache or that heartache another time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any final words?
Yeah, I think
that covers it.
Yeah.
I think we're good to go. Yeah.
Yes. So now this episode is in the past, but don't leave it in the past. Share with your friends. Keep it on deck if you want to remember that you have people here that, you know, with our limited life experience, we just want to share what we have with you. And just remember, don't let past things be the barrier that keeps you from having a good future. So as always, heal responsibly. I'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thanks a lot.